The story begins in the year 1235. We're introduced to a Christian city where many people have gathered near a bridge. 3 women are about to be hanged. These 3 are accused of black magic and devil worship. This was a time when such allegations were common against women, and they were subsequently punished. Soldiers tie ropes around the necks of the trio. A priest, holding an old book, admonishes them to confess their sins to ensure their souls will be forgiven. One of the women, weeping and pleading for her life, admits to her sins. "Yes, I confess. I worshiped the devil. I practiced black magic," she says. The second woman protests her innocence, insisting that she merely created and sold medicines and never delved into black magic. The third woman, however, shows no fear. She defiantly tells the priest that he will burn in hell. After her pronouncement, the 3 women are hanged, and their bodies are submerged in the water. As the crowd begins to disperse, the priest instructs the soldiers to retrieve the bodies, so he may recite incantations from Solomon's book over them. The soldiers, however, dismiss his concerns, arguing that the women are dead and will not return. Aware of a looming curse, the priest starts to retrieve the bodies one by one that evening, performing exorcisms as he goes. When he tries to recover the third body, it's too heavy and falls into the water. As soon as it emerges, the third woman comes back to life, but not as a woman, as a devil. She burns the priest's book and hangs him using the same rope. The scene then cuts, and the narrative jumps forward 100 years. Christianity is spreading worldwide, leading to massive conflicts. 2 Christian warriors named Beman and Pelson are engaged in these wars, fighting in the name of their religion for many years. These men, good friends and formidable warriors, have fought many battles without ever experiencing defeat. During the Battle of Smyrna in 1344, Beman and Pelson lead an assault on a city. As they cut a swath through its populace, Beman becomes appalled by the carnage of innocent children and women. His sword even claims the life of a young girl. Disturbed by these atrocities, he halts his attack. The Man and Pelson return to their Grand Master. Beman confronts him, stating, "I've sworn to fight for God, not to kill children and women." The Grand Master, infuriated by his defiance, retorts, "You will do as the church commands. You are but a soldier. God's voice whispers in my ear, not yours." Beman, not backing down, angrily suggests that perhaps the voice in the Grand Master's ear is not that of God. Beman and Pelson decide to abandon the army. The Grand Master threatens them, declaring that they can't leave and must honor their vows. But no one stops them. They leave, turning into outcasts for breaking the church's rules. For a month, they roam, looking for a new place to call home. One day, while passing by the sea, they discover an isolated house surrounded by untended crops. Inside the house, they find its occupants, a man and a woman, both lying dead on the bed, their bodies disfigured by a horrific disease. Beman and Pelson set fire to the house and continue their journey. Along the way, Pelson asks Beman, "We've seen so much death, but what can a person do to avoid such a fate?" As they ponder this question, they come across a Christian city. Pelson advises against entering, but Beman insists they need food, clothing, and horses for their journey. They proceed to enter the city. Upon their arrival, they encounter a dreadful scene. The streets are littered with corpses, cries and screams echo through the air, and people are wailing in repentance for their sins. Some people are even taking their own lives. Puzzled, Pelson asks, "What kind of madness is this?" A man standing nearby overhears their conversation and answers, "This is a pandemic, a disease with no cure." This man, named Icarta, informs them that the pandemic has ravaged the city for the past 3 years, claiming 1 in 4 lives. Surprised that they are ignorant of this catastrophe, Beman explains they are mere travelers, unaware of the current circumstances. As Christians, they encounter no resistance from the locals. However, when they attempt to purchase horses, a local spots Beman's sword a knight's blade. Just as they're about to leave, word spreads among the soldiers that Beeman and Pelson are rebels who have fled from the war. A skirmish ensues, but eventually the two men surrender their weapons. They are brought before the cardinal, who himself has fallen ill with the disease and is bedridden. When the priest presents Beeman's sword to the cardinal, he recognizes the men. Upon hearing their names, the cardinal says, "I know you both. Your victories are legendary." He reveals that the ongoing epidemic is a curse from hell, brought about by a witch who used black magic. The witch, now captured, has confessed to her actions. The cardinal explains that the only way to lift the curse is to transport the witch to the church of Severek, where the monks possess the knowledge to break the spell. When Beman inquires how this concerns him, the cardinal suggests that while the church is incapable of this task, Beeman and Pelson could successfully deliver the witch to Severek. Alternatively, they could stay and serve the church. Beeman refuses, and as a result, he and Pelson are thrown into a dark cell. They share their confinement with a young woman. On seeing her, Pelson asks if she is the witch, to which Beeman replies that she doesn't appear to be. That night, Beeman is plagued by a horrific dream in which he is murdering an innocent woman. Upon waking, he notices the young woman crying, her back covered in wounds as if she's been severely beaten. Witnessing her pain shifts Beeman's resolve. He decides not to serve the church, but instead accepts the mission to transport the woman, believing her to be the accused witch. In a bid to save the girl's life, Beeman agrees to undertake the mission. He meets with the priest the next day and declares his conditions. They will assist, but the girl must be treated justly, and all accusations against her must be cleared. A soldier named Eckhart and the priest agree to accompany them on their journey. The priest possesses a map charting the arduous 900-mile journey through dense forests, across rivers, and over mountains. However, Beeman and Pelson are reluctant to rely solely on the map. They request someone familiar with the route, someone who's traveled it before and can guide them. The priest introduces them to a prisoner named Hekmar, incarcerated for deception. Beeman strikes a deal with him. If Hekmar successfully guides them to Severek, the charges against him will be dropped. With the prospect of his freedom and restored vision, Hekmar agrees to join them. Thus, the traveling party comprises Beeman, Pelson, the priest, the soldier Eckhart, the guide Hekmar, and the girl they are to escort. When they visit the prison to collect the girl, she lashes out at them, but Pelson subdues her. With the girl in their custody, they depart from the city towards Severek. Shortly after their departure, the disease-ridden cardinal dies. During the journey, Hekmar is frequently found observing the girl. He expresses his discomfort to the priest, who reassures him that the girl is merely attempting to intimidate him. Eckhart questions the priest about the evidence against the girl, asking how they can be certain she's a witch and the one behind the curse. The priest cautions him not to be fooled by her innocent appearance, explaining that he has personally heard her uttering things to herself in an incomprehensible language. He elaborates that shortly after the girl arrived in their city, the epidemic broke out within 7 days, and this pattern repeated everywhere she went. Eckhart counters that their village had also been hit by the epidemic, even though they hadn't received news of the girl's arrival. Meanwhile, as they traverse the challenging terrain, Pelson and Beeman converse. Pelson expresses his suspicion that someone is trailing them. When they apprehend their tail, the priest identifies him as Kai, an assistant of the cardinal's. Beeman tells Kai to leave, but Kai insists on joining them, offering his service in exchange for a knight's title. Pelson laughs at his proposition, prompting a fight between the two. Though Kai doesn't defeat Pelson, he holds his own, impressing Beeman enough to accept him into their group. At night, Kai listens to tales of Beeman and Pelson's battles. Beeman takes a moment to deliver a meal and blanket to the girl, who remarks on his kindness, noting that he isn't like the others. When she asks what awaits her in Severek, Beeman responds, justice. The girl tells a grim tale of a woman in her village who was accused of witchcraft. To prove her guilt or innocence, the villagers filled her pockets with stones and cast her into water, claiming if she drowned, she was immortal, and if she survived, she was immortal, and if she survived, she was a witch. The woman survived, but she was burned alive for being a witch. Bhima assures the girl that she won't suffer a similar fate. Pointing to the priest, she asks if he has harmed her, to which she nods affirmatively. When Bhima returns, the priest asks what she has told him. Bhima turns the question around, asking why he wants to know. The priest cautions Bhima against revealing his heart's secrets to her or trusting her, insisting that she's cunning and capable of turning them against each other. That night, they make camp in the forest. The priest, known as Fadri, assigns the first guard shift to Eckhart, who finds himself watching the girl. A few hours later, when Fadri relieves him, Eckhart confesses that the girl reminds him of his daughter. The girl wakes at his words. As Eckhart prepares to leave, the girl bursts into tears, pleading him not to leave her alone with Fadri. Approaching the girl, Eckhart asks if she fears Fadri, and in response, she lunges at Eckhart. Fadri steps in to intervene, but the girl manages to injure his hand. The girl snatches a key from around Fadri's neck and flees into the night. Hearing the commotion, Bhima, Felsen, and Kaye rush over, only to be told by Fadri that the girl has escaped. They all set out to a nearby village to track her down. The village had already been ravaged by the epidemic, leaving it nearly deserted, and the few remaining inhabitants dead. In the village, the girl employs her powers to divert their attention. Eckhart is manipulated into seeing his own daughter in her and approaches her, leaving him vulnerable. Mistaking Eckhart's actions as intent to harm the girl, Kaye steeps forward, inadvertently killing Eckhart. In shock and remorse, Kaye continually laments his action, claiming that he had been trying to stop Eckhart, who wasn't listening, and was drawn to the girl he thought was his daughter, Mila. In the midst of their grief, they recapture the girl, who pleads with them not to return her to Fadri, accusing him of mistreating her. Deeply saddened by Eckhart's death, they bury him the next morning, with Beman vowing that his sacrifice won't be in vain. They resume their journey to Severick with the girl, but before setting off, Fadri warns Beman and the others not to reveal their innermost thoughts to the witch, as she can use their words against them. He gives the example of the previous night when Eckhart had talked about his daughter, and the witch had overheard him. Their journey takes them to an old, dilapidated bridge made of ropes and sticks. Heckmar recalls crossing the bridge nearly a decade ago, when it was still in good condition, but now it was dangerously fragile. Despite the evident risks, especially considering their heavy wagon, they decide to cross. The bridge starts to collapse under the strain and their horse dies in the process, but miraculously, they all manage to cross, thanks in part to the girl. However, the bridge falls apart completely once they're across. Upon crossing the bridge, they enter a thick, menacing forest, blanketed by such dense fog that it obscures their path. Deciding it's too risky to proceed in such conditions, they opt to camp for the night in the forest. One night, Beman approaches the girl and expresses his gratitude for saving the horse's life on the bridge. However, the girl begins to talk about matters that raise Beman's suspicions. Later, the man awakens from a disturbing dream to find Heckmar standing near their camp, weapon in hand. Startled by Beman's sudden appearance, Heckmar suggests they kill the girl to end their perilous journey, insisting that no one would stop them. An argument ensues, with Heckmar threatening to take action. Overhearing the dispute, the girl begins imitating wolf calls. Soon, a pack of wolves descend upon the group. Despite their efforts to fight them off, the wolves' numbers are overwhelming, forcing them to flee. In the ensuing chaos, Heckmar falls prey to the wolves and the group can't save him. The man is deeply distressed by Heckmar's death and decides to kill the girl the next morning. But Fadri intervenes, telling Beman he won't allow it. As Beeman dismisses Fadri, Felsen appears, announcing they've arrived at their destination, Severick. This revelation causes Beeman to reconsider his plan, and they proceed towards the house. During the journey, Felsen expresses a desire to return to his birthplace once their mission is complete. Upon reaching the house, they discover that all the monks there have died from the epidemic. Fadri takes possession of Solomon's book, and alone, he begins to recite incantations over the girl. However, in a startling twist, the girl reveals everyone's past deeds. She accuses Beeman and Felsen of killing innocents and asserts that Beeman is now attempting to save an innocent girl's life to absolve himself of his sins and avoid damnation. She criticizes the bloodshed committed in the name of religion, claiming they've killed more people than the epidemic itself. Hearing her revelations, Fadri realizes that the girl isn't a witch, but is possessed by a demon. He starts performing an exorcism, but the demon manifests in its true form, sets the arrows ablaze, and flees the scene. Them into bringing it to Severick. They realize it was the demon that killed Eckhard and Heckmar, who stood in its way. Upon entering the church, they find all the deceased monks were in the process of replicating Solomon's book, the only tool that could kill the demon. The book in Fadri's possession was now the last of its kind in the world, and the demon was hell-bent on destroying it. Umayyan advises Kai to leave, arguing that this isn't his fight, but Kai refuses, prompting the man to knight him. Felsen questions whether they are battling the demon or trying to save the girl, to which Beeman replies, both. As they're discussing in the church, the demon confronts them. Beeman instructs Fadri to commence the exorcism. The demon retaliates, hurling objects at them with its powers. Suddenly, the deceased monks' bodies vanish, overtaken by the demon's influence, and attack the group. Fadri, engrossed in reading the book, falls victim to the demon. The book tumbles to the ground. Felsen engages the demon, but the demon immolates him. Kai retrieves the book and begins to read. As the demon prepares to strike him, Beeman intervenes, pinning its wings to the wall. The demon retaliates, attempting to destroy Bemeem, but he perseveres. As soon as the incantation is complete, the demon is banished back to hell, leaving the innocent girl in her original form. In the aftermath of the battle, only Kaye and the girl survive. The others have perished. Together, they bury their fallen comrades. The girl expresses her gratitude to Veman and his companions for saving her life, pulling her out of darkness. She and Kai leave the church, moving forward with newfound hope, and thus the story comes to an end.